You gonna do this or not?
Yeah, I'm just checking the sound.
Just get going. I want to get home already.
All right, calm down. Why do you have to be so mean to me?
I'm not being mean to you. You're annoying. I want to go home already, and you've been sitting around. You do nothing with your life, and you do this stupid podcast. Tell us who's on the show.
Welcome to the show.
That's a good start. That's good. Welcome, everybody. There you go. See, I'm not being mean. That was good. All right.
Welcome to the show. On today's episode, the great Judah Friedlander joins us.
You have Judah Friedlander. Seriously, Frank from 30 Rock.
Yeah, that's right. He's on my show.
Does he know he's doing the David Feldman show? What'd you tell him? It was like Joe Rogan or something?
No, I told him the truth. He's a friend of mine.
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
I started doing comedy with Judah Friedlander.
Yeah, and why don't you stop doing comedy with Judah Friedlander? Right? Just stop it already. It didn't work out for you. It worked out for Judah. He's gone off to a fabulous career. I love him on 30 Rock. I love his Netflix specials. People want to see Judah Friedlander. They don't want to watch you tell jokes. So just stop. Give up. It didn't work out for you. Kind of like this podcast. Just quit already. Stop making people suffer through, I guess, this illness that you have where you scream for attention, but it's not interesting. You're screaming for attention, but it's a boring scream.
Judah Friedlander joins us, and he's doing a show today at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you want to watch it, February 3rd, it starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, and that would be 8 p.m. in London. Check out Judah's live stand-up. It's pay what you want. Go to judahfriedlander.com today, Friday, to attend his virtual show.
I would watch that. That sounds... So it's pay what you want?
Yeah. I think it's like $1 through Eventbrite. I think you have to pay $1. The rest is up to you.
Wow, you should try that. You should do a show where people pay what they want, and you'd end up having to send money to your audience. That's, if you ask the people to pay what they wanted, you would end up with like negative $1,000. You'd owe the audience for sitting through this crap you try to pass off as entertainment. God, you're boring. Have you been out of the apartment? You know, this isn't a jail cell. You're free to wander around New York City. You look like Edgar Winter in a snowstorm. I've never seen anybody whiter than you. You look like shit. You look horrible. Go outside. You're just like the poster boy for vitamin D deficiency. Get some sunlight, and hopefully some of that sunlight will, well, give you something that will shorten your life.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, if you stay in the sun too long, you get sick.
Oh, you want me to get...
Yeah, I do. I want you to go away. I want you to stop doing comedy. I want you to stop doing this podcast. I just want you to disappear. You're just horrible. You're just a horrible human being.
You're not nice to me.
No, I'm a truth teller. You fancy yourself a truth teller? I'm telling you the truth. You suck.
Okay.
Yeah, who else is on the show?
Well, Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld.
Oh, the psychiatrist.
Yeah, and after talking to you, I could use one.
You could use a psychiatrist after talking to a tree stump. You're so mentally ill.
Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld is a real Freudian psychoanalyst with his son, Ethan.
Oh, he's funny. You talking about comedian Ethan Hirschfeld from Thug Thug Jew?
Yeah, he's on the show.
Why would he do your show? Why would these people do your show? I mean, I can understand why Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld does your show, because he's a psychiatrist, and he must, like, view you as a charity case, like pro bono work. But why would Ethan Hirschenfeld, brilliant, he wrote a book, right?
Yeah, it's called Today Is Now.
Very funny. Very funny. He does that with his Alter Ego, Dr. Samuel Benjamin. I've read that book 3 times, and I laughed harder each time I read it. Do you know what the word harder means?
Yes. Why do I suspect that you're going to...
Make fun of your penis?
No, not. I wouldn't expect you to do anything like that.
Okay, so Ethan Hirschenfeld is doing your show, and you've got Judah Friedlander, which I don't believe.
He's on the show.
Why? Why would he? What does he stand to gain from doing the show?
Well, he actually listens to it.
Nobody listens to this show.
Judah is a fan of this show.
No, he's not. Nobody's a fan of you or this show. Judah Friedlander, Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld, and Ethan Hirschenfeld. Can we get to it already? What else do you have to tell the people?
Well, we're going to do office hours.
That's exciting. You've never mentioned office hours on this show before.
Well, we do it every Friday night.
At 6 p.m. Yes, you're building a community of like-minded losers. So it's at 6 p.m. Eastern?
Exactly, because we used to start at
8 o'clock, I know, and now you're trying to accommodate your European listeners by starting at 6 p.m. Eastern instead of 8 p.m. You are Trey-continental.
Thank you. And on today's show, we're going to talk about mass psychosis, the fear of death, and whether the children of billionaires can be rich.
Well, that's something your kids don't have to worry about. The children of billionaires can be rich? What does that mean?
I made a mistake. I meant to say whether or not the children of billionaires can be happy.
Oh, okay. You didn't make a mistake. Either way, it wasn't interesting. Children of billionaires, whether or not billionaires' children can be rich, or whether or not the children of billionaires can be happy. Either way, it's a snore fest. You are a snore fest.
Office hours every Friday night starting at 6 p.m. Eastern.
What is this? Am I in a Grand Canyon? I hear an echo. How many times are you going to say that office hours starts every Friday night at 6 p.m.?
All you need is Zoom.
And all you need is a toupee and a facelift. God, you're hideous.
Okay, go to my website for the link for office hours, and while you're over there, sign up for my newsletter.
You do a newsletter?
Yeah, I write a weekly newsletter.
Weekly as in it's week? Like you write it weekly, like you have no power?
No, it comes out every Friday.
Okay, Friday you send out a newsletter. And why should anybody want to read what you have to say?
It has the link for office hours.
Oh, okay. So I'll subscribe. I'll go to office hours tonight at 6 p.m. just to watch you self-destruct.
Coming up, Judah Friedlander, and then the Hirschenfelds. Stay with me.
They're not staying with you. If anybody is stupid enough to keep listening to this show, it's because you have Judah Friedlander on, and they'll try to block out anything you say. And afterwards, you've got Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld and Ethan Hirschenfeld, so they're going to stick around to listen to them and pretend you don't exist. God, you look like shit. Do you have a mirror or anything? Why would you expose me this pathetic relief map of Mars you try to pass off as a face? You need sunlight, vitamin D, exercise, and a prostitute. I will spring for a prostitute for you because you look like you haven't been touched since Davy Mammal babysat for you.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show, you happy, self-actualized hump.
Judah Friedlander joins us. Hello, Judah.
Good evening.
Or good morning, depending on the people listening to us overseas.
I'm a night guy.
You are a night guy. Everybody says he's such a night guy. Mm-hmm. He's so night. You're so night to people. Hey, you do a live show via Zoom for audiences all around the world. How do people watch it? And I understand it's pay what you can, right? Or pay what you...
Yeah, it's pay what you want. So instead of like doing it on Zoom where I do it at home and then anyone can log in from anywhere, I actually go to different cities and you can only be in that city and log on in Zoom.
Is that true?
No. No, I do it from right here.
It's such a great idea, though.
Yeah. I do it from right here at Freedom headquarters. And, yeah, it's pay what you want. And yeah, it's usually every Saturday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, so 6 o'clock Western, other times, other places. And then about once every 2-3 weeks, I'll do a daytime show at 3 o'clock Eastern. So it's, nighttime for Middle East and Europe. And each show is about 2 hours. I usually do about 90 minutes. And people can have their cameras on if they want, their mics on. So it's, it can be interactive. So basically, like if someone has their camera off and mic off, that's like sitting in the back of a comedy venue.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want your camera on, that's sort of like sitting in the first few rows.
Right.
Yeah.
And you haven't been in the comedy clubs in 3 years because of COVID.
It's next month. It'll be 3 years. Yeah.
What do you miss most about the comedy clubs?
I think the 2-drink minimum. I think that's a great policy. Like when I want to go to a show, it's like I want to be forced to buy like 2 glasses of overpriced, watered down alcohol.
Right.
I mean, that's why I don't go to the movies anymore. Like, there's no popcorn minimum or drink minimum. It's
Right.
like, who wants that?
And there's nobody walking in front of you serving drinks when you're right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go to the ballet and have to pay, the wait staff after the show. I want to pay it right during the show, like in the finale.
Near the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and be like completely interrupted. That's what I want in a show.
And you and I went to see Swan Lake.
Yeah.
And you can't talk back to the performers at the ballet. Did you know?
For ballet, I'm actually okay with that because they can't speak. I mean, that's why people go into the ballet.
Oh, that's why I got thrown out. They're not allowed to speak at all?
Yeah, that was actually offensive, what you did.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought I wanted to be a part of the show. When you go to see a stand-up.
I actually went to a really bad ballet once, and the performers talked through the whole thing because they couldn't really show what was going on through dance. They weren't so they just really said, what should be happening.
Oy, that if I were a ballet dancer, most of what I would say is, oy, oh my, oy, oy. There are things.
You'd be in the monologue portion of the ballet.
There are things that people can do with their bodies that are otherworldly that I can barely. Now, you are a world champion. How do you stay in shape? Most of us in the past 3 years have stayed indoors. We're afraid to go outside. What are your secrets to staying healthy, young, and vibrant?
It's very important is eating what you eat. You have to know what is the most important thing to eat. And that is the rich. The rich.
Eating rich people.
Yeah, that's how you get in shape.
Okay. Now, do you check to see the ingredients? Sometimes I've eaten rich people, and it turns out they're upper middle class. Don't you think the Food and Drug Administration should post
Still helpful. Still helpful.
It's helpful to eat the upper middle class?
Yeah, because if you think they're super rich, that's still going to, the body knows how to, adjust for that.
It's the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens... Because I have found myself thinking I'm eating a billionaire, and you realize, no, I've just been served a homeless person. There's no nutrition here. And you can't call the police. They say caveat emptor or whatever, buyer beware.
Well, you're actually getting to a more important point, and that is that I think all cops should be billionaires. That's
They're not?
Apparently not. I mean, if you can't trust a billionaire cop, who can you trust?
Why aren't they billionaires? That's who they protect on the streets. Doesn't make any
Corrupt
sense.
system, David.
So they're only cops are only millionaires.
That's what I'm going to do when I'm president. I'm going to reform the police so that they only protect billionaires instead of multimillionaires and billionaires.
Yeah.
Let's get them focused.
So they're diluted. They should only be protecting property and billionaires. And
Property that's really worth a lot.
exactly. Right.
Yeah. Billionaire property.
So we do have a policing problem in this country. That
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're protecting the wrong people.
Too many doctors, not enough cops.
Too many teachers.
I mean, doctor actually means teacher in Latin. So that falls under that category. So you are correct.
So we should spend more money on cops. Too many. I think too many schools, too many libraries, too many books.
One school is too many.
Homeschool.
That's still a school. It's wrong.
Yeah.
I think kids are small because God wanted them to crawl behind all those machines in the factories.
And fix. Yeah. You can't get. Yes, absolutely. So kids should be going to work. At what age? What is an appropriate age to send a child to work?
When they're still inside their pregnant mothers. Mm-hmm. Birth them right there, get them to work.
I
Maybe
like
may not
that.
do
Yeah.
much, but it can be a paperweight. It could, you can put it. It can be a doorstop. You can put it places where it could actually be functional
And give
and
itself.
it can absorb that work environment. Be part of the team. Be a team player. Be a family member.
And it improves the work ethic. You see your mother working, and there are no absentee parents. They always say, oh, the mom has to go off to work and she can't afford daycare. No, you bring little Billy to the auto factory and he's a doorstop.
Yeah, and then we can finally close all the day centers, which I've been for closing them for about 30 years. We need to close all the daycare centers.
Why
They
can't
don't care about the night. They don't care about the night. They only care about the day.
there are no night care centers, are there?
No,
for
and
children.
I'm a night guy.
Yeah, which is why you don't have kids, because there are no night care centers.
Why would anyone do that to kids?
Yeah,
Have them raised at a place that only cares about the day?
it's kind of prejudiced against night owls.
I think it's what started climate change.
Is the lack of night care centers for children,
Yeah.
because
You only care about the sun. How do you think the moon feels?
like garbage.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to say those words, but yes.
And as a parent of several children, I think many of my marriages would have lasted had there been night care centers. So when you have a baby who's keeping you up at night or making it impossible for you and your spouse to engage in a loving relationship, to manufacture more.
Yeah, or you're at home at night, you're trying to, do whatever on the computer and your kid's bugging you to play or like help with homework. And, this is your downtime,
And if I could take the kid to a night care center,
That's what I'm saying.
and then when I'm on my way to work, I carpool with the kid, and he or she spends 14 hours with me at the factory working as a doorstop.
Yeah. And just think if all the cars actually had a pool in it.
Well, they usually, if you're driving for Amazon, they do have a little pool because they don't allow pee breaks. But you can't really, you can't swim in that.
Yeah.
Well, you can actually. Boy, this country, it's just stupid. They don't think creatively here. They're
They
back.
never do. It's part of the corporatization problem of the country.
Yeah. So cops should be billionaires, or at least millionaires.
I said billionaires, David.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about
I
citizens?
see a millionaire cop. I see a failure of government. I
Yeah.
see a billionaire cop. I'm like, the country's working.
Yeah, it's a policy failure if a cop is just a millionaire. And what about citizens protecting cops? It seems like we've become kind of, we have a sense of entitlement where we think, oh, there's the cop. He's going to protect me, or he's going to solve this crime.
Well, I think when I talk about more cops, I really mean more cops. I mean, what if everyone was a cop? The country would be really safe,
And we'd all be,
everyone would be a billionaire.
we'd all be
Everyone would
billionaires.
rich,
Yeah.
and that would fix the economy.
right. And nobody would need to steal or rob anything,
Nope.
which means we wouldn't need cops. And then we wouldn't need billionaires.
And then it's solved.
And it's all, the whole thing is solved. What
You
about,
make everyone a billionaire cop, the whole system implodes, and then we can go back to love and freedom.
love and freedom? Yeah. Kyle Rittenhouse, you are saying that he should be drafted and he should run for office, maybe vice
No,
president.
that's not what I'm saying, David. Now you're just saying things.
Sorry.
Never apologize. You're an American.
Okay. But
America's never done anything wrong, David.
I never said it did. I love this country, and you know that I would gladly send anybody's child other than mine off to defend it. Why, what did I read? I thought I read somewhere that you were good friends with Kyle Rittenhouse
Nope.
and that you were urging him to run for office. I must have.
No, that wasn't me. That
Wasn't you. Okay. And
That must have been one of your other friends.
I don't have any other friends.
Oh,
I'm monogamous.
okay.
I mean, wouldn't you be upset if you found out that I had another friend?
No, I'd actually be a little bit relieved.
You don't like me calling you 4 times a day asking you what you're up to?
David, I don't think that's ever happened.
I call you like 4 times a day.
You never call me, David.
I do. What are you doing? What are you
People
thinking?
ask me, like, I hardly ever do podcasts. And people ask me, why do you do a podcast? And I'm like, because I can't get anyone to talk to me on the phone. It's like conversation has been monetized in society.
Yeah.
And if it's not a money-making thing, it's been a publicized thing.
Right.
No, I like your show a lot, and I like doing it, but I really don't do podcasts often. But and I'm not talking with your show, but I mean, like, in general, if you look at the podcast scheme of things in the U.S.,
Right.
conversation really has been, corporatized, monetized.
Commodified.
Yeah,
I won't talk to anybody unless I can hit record.
yeah.
Everything in my life is a podcast.
And then when everyone's just trying to make money and get famous with podcasts, everything they talk about, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot is like geared towards what they think the algorithm is going to promote the most.
Right. Now, what is the
conversations aren't real. Yeah.
What is the algorithm? I always hear that term. What does it mean?
I don't know.
Does it really exist? Or is it something they made up?
I initially thought it was the former vice president referring to his dancing skills.
Dick
Al
Cheney?
Gore
Dick
rhythm.
Cheney?
No, Al Gore rhythm.
Al Gore rhythm. Stiff.
Yeah.
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 Oh, Al Gore, the algorithm. Oh, the Al Gore rhythm.
Yeah.
That'll get you. The algorithm will get you.
Yeah, that's what I initially thought it was.
Yeah.
Because people say he invented the internet.
But it seems like,
So it seems like algorithm would be named after him.
yeah. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what,
It's just a guess. I'm just an athlete. I don't know everything.
yeah. I want to ask you about sports and in a second. It feels like the algorithm, whenever I get fired from a writing job or a show gets canceled, they say it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm. It just seems to be a catch-all for rejection. It's not my fault.
Good point. Like it's a new scapegoat, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
So do you think we're blaming, like, I'm breaking up with you, it's not your fault, it's the algorithm? Do you think we're getting to a point where
I think that's actually very perceptive, and I think you're onto something, and that might be happening soon. So, I mean, I could see that for real. I could see, like, people meet on Bumble or, you know, one of those dating sites, and they initially think it's great. Then after a few dates, they realize it's not. And then they actually blame it on the algorithm for connecting them.
And so the algorithm keeps studying you. It measures what you purchase, what you like, what you listen to, what you watch. And eventually,
that's why I don't buy anything or listen to anything. You got to fight it.
You got to fight it because they're building a profile of you, of what you like and dislike. And then they could figure out, the algorithm theoretically can figure out who you should be linked up to, kind of like a dating site, right?
Right.
But in a dating site, you have choice. The algorithm dictates who you should be married to.
It dictates the choice, right?
It dictates, and that's better. Wouldn't you like the algorithm to say, this is who you're going to spend the rest of your life with? That's what I'm looking for.
You can't let the computers and the robots win, David.
Is it letting the computers or robots win, or making my life simple, telling me what I want?
No, it's desimplifying your brain and your passion.
I don't think
you're letting the robots dictate one of the most important things in your life.
But I think you're making a mistake by anthropomorphizing the algorithm and calling it a robot. I think it's a beautiful system that we should trust. For example,
I think you're part of the problem now.
You don't like the fact that when you go to the Daily Beast,
David, we're starting to get into an argument, and I'm going to blame it on the algorithm.
Well, the algorithm told me to discuss this with you. I'm a slave to the algorithm.
There you go.
You don't trust ones and zeros. You don't think ones and zeros know better than humans.
How can a 1 and a 0 get along? One is number 1, and the other is a total 0. How do you make them
Opposites attract. Do you think there's a person out there? Mm-hmm. How many people are there? 8 billion people on the planet?
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
The algorithm, only the algorithm, they say there's somebody out there for us, right?
Who said that?
They always say there's one person out.
Who's they?
The algorithm.
Okay.
The algorithm says that there's a person out there who will totally get us and laugh and love everything we say and do. But you don't have time.
I don't know that wasn't my goal in this conversation.
Your goal, what is your goal?
It's not really a goal, actually, David. The only goal really is to vibe and, vibe, entertain, grow, learn, teach, all that stuff, man.
Right.
To see what happens.
So
that's really what it is to see what happens and enjoy it along the way.
No matter what sport you try, you succeed at it beyond expectations. Is there any sport that you're not good at where you feel humbled?
Hasn't happened yet.
Is there a sport where are you better at one sport than you are at another?
Soccer or football, or depending, they call it other things in the world too.
Right.
We're not the only ones who call it soccer or who don't call it football. Calcio is what they call it in Italy. Nogomet in Croatia. So it's a myth that everyone calls it football except us.
Why does it keep changing its name?
Well, I think just different countries just have different names for it, as far as I know.
You don't think it's trying to deceive?
No.
You don't think it's deceptive?
No. And I think it's okay to call it different things. Yeah.
So your favorite sport to play, what is it?
Soccer.
You love playing
Football.
soccer. Yeah.
Yeah. Then ping pong. And those are the two most international sports in the world.
Ping pong and soccer.
Soccer being number one.
And then ping pong. And you've combined the two, right? You've created.
They do have that, actually, and I forget the name for it. It's like a ping pong table, except instead of being flat, it's actually a little bit bent, and you head the soccer ball over the net. It's great. It's really good.
And I remember you would come to my kids' games, and you would always tell them.
That wasn't me, David.
Well, somebody looking like you would come.
That could be. I'm a role model, but it wasn't me.
Somebody was telling my kids to head the ball, and I kept saying, "This is baseball, not soccer." Why are you telling my kid?
That would be bad.
Yeah,
that would be real bad.
Yeah. But you think
Even in soccer, it can be a little
yeah,
some problems sometimes. Yeah.
yeah.
That's World Cup. This World Cup, the games were unbelievable.
Yeah. You can lose yourself. Do you remember playing the game at that level? Or you still do? You're still playing it at that.
I'm banned from the World Cup, but yeah.
What'd you do?
My bone structure is too solid, and if another player were to kick me in the leg, their foot could die. So the governing body of world football banned me, much to the dismay of tearful fans around the world.
So you can't play professional soccer because you're just too good.
I'm banned.
What about mixed martial arts?
I don't respect it.
You don't respect mixed martial arts?
No, that's why they mix it up, because they're not any good at one particular martial art. They have to mix it up to give the illusion that they have some kind of competency.
Boxing? Do you?
Also banned.
You're banned from boxing because the gloves aren't soft enough to protect the fists from your face?
No, it's not that. I really don't want to get into it, but I think my boxing record is 68-0 with 250 knockouts.
250 knockouts in 68 bouts.
Yeah.
So who else are you knocking out?
Sometimes I'll knock out the opponent and they'll ricochet into other people. And knock them out. It's too dangerous, David. I don't want to get into it. I would like to switch subjects.
All right. I did see you box, and you knocked out your opponent, and then you punched the ref and a couple of people in the crowd. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of
judges. The judges.
The judges, yeah.
I'm like, why are you three judging us? Why can't you just enjoy the fight like everyone else here?
Yeah.
You got to be judging us. Yeah, not cool.
Biden, you think he's doing a good job?
You know,
You think
has the president done a good job recently?
Of this country?
Yeah. I think he's doing a great job, increasing the profit margins for Raytheon. I think that's been good.
They make bombs, right?
I think he's done a good job in getting people to pretend the pandemic's over. He's been good there.
So that's good, right? He's given us.
Yeah. No, you got to protect the economy and the profit margins of the medical and the military industrial complexes. So
right.
He's doing that. I mean, that's what presidents are supposed to do.
Now, Raytheon, refresh my memory. They make bombs and vaccines. What does Raytheon do?
Raytheon is a war weapons manufacturer.
They make weapons for war.
They're in the military industrial complex.
Right, and they make bombs that and that's good for the economy, I'm told.
Apparently, that's what the president says.
So if we destroy things, if we drop bombs on people, and that helps with COVID.
It's basically, if we don't bomb other countries, how will our children learn geography?
You know,
That's what I'm trying to say, David.
You have a point.
But basically, it comes down to, when everyone talks about gun control, we got to do something about gun control in this country. We never talk about what we're going to do about our gun control that we do outside our country. And war is, which, America, that's basically our go-to, is if we're not controlling our guns that we do outside the country, how do you expect us to control them inside the country?
Well, don't you think we're doing a better job not killing each other domestically because we're killing so many people overseas? Wouldn't we be killing more of our own if we weren't taking it out on other countries?
Look, I'm a peace and love guy, Dave.
I know that.
I'm a peace and love guy.
So am I.
Okay.
But don't you think war is a permanent state in nature?
No, but I think since, we make so much money through it, I think that's, that's one of the, it's almost like a hack way to make money,
Yeah. It's tired.
All these wars we have going on.
Yeah, it's a tired, you're saying it's trite, been there, done that.
Right. How they say Hollywood's out of original ideas. It's like, look at our military, I mean, some of these wars just seem like reboots of other ones. They don't really seem like a new, interesting, unique war.
World War One,
the same old storyline over and over again.
Yeah, World War II. They're calling the next one, if he uses nukes in Ukraine, it'll be World War III. It's not, there's nothing original.
Scary shit. I'm anti-war, Dave. I'm not a pro-war guy like yourself.
I'm not pro-war. I just think...
so you're saying you hate America?
I'm not saying I hate America.
So you're a terrorist?
Yeah. I mean, but that... But, I do...
I got you. I finally got you, David.
I'm a casual...
That whole conversation was to finally get you to admit it, David.
I do casual terrorism on the weekends. But I don't take it seriously. I don't, I'm not consumed by the terrorism. If it works, it works. I'm a weekend terrorist.
Okay.
I'm anti-war. I do think that we have to figure out a way to destroy COVID. And
I've talked about that. This country is always about war. We're about killing shit, right? It's like, all right, you had a perfect opportunity. A new virus comes in to fucking kill it. And everyone just pretends there's not a problem anymore when there's still a fucking problem. Yeah. But if you look at it, if you make the argument that the U.S. used to do wars to actually win the wars, and now a win in a war is just have the war go on forever.
Yes.
Because then the profits just keep going. And then you look at the pandemic and you look at how corporations and billionaires have actually increased their profit margins. You're like, oh, maybe it should just kind of keep going. And, you kill off a lot of immunocompromised and seniors, and then you can save money in those little bits of public health that the country actually does do, and then they can save some money there. So, yeah, I think it's...
So how do we get in on
a lot of scary
this?
shit, and people have bought into everything's fine.
How do you and I get into that?
Get into what?
Creating like a chronic disease or condition that we never get out of, and we make money off of it.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy, David. I don't know. That I don't know, man.
Oh, so I'm the one who hates America. You're the one.
That's what I said.
But no, I'm being sarcastic. I'm saying let's come up with a chronic condition that you can't get rid of and cash in on it. And you're saying I'm talking to the wrong guy. Like you're not interested in profiting off the suffering of others. And yet
I'm actually not. Yeah, that's why I don't fit into society.
Well, you're certainly not fitting into my country. What are you doing in this country if you don't want to profit?
Because I don't know where else to go. I don't know where to go, David.
Well, why don't you get with the program and perpetuate the suffering of others?
The program, huh? That's what you call it now.
I call it patriotism.
Okay. Should we rename America the program?
The program, yeah.
Yeah. Or should we rename America patriotism?
The patriotic program.
Interesting.
Did it ever occur to you, and you are a guest on my show, and I didn't want to argue with you, you're a world champion at every sport. When you play soccer, or when you were allowed to play soccer, you got on the field and you played soccer. You didn't play ping pong.
Correct.
Well, you're in America. Play the game. The game is perpetuate the suffering of others for fun and profit. But I don't understand why you would, what you're doing in this country if you're not trying to profit off other people's
David,
suffering.
Look, I listen to your show every week, and I always like when you close your show by reminding everyone to stay weak and protect the strong.
Yes. But I live by that motto.
Yeah. And it serves you well.
Thank
as
you.
well as everyone else.
Well, why would I think too many people care too much about the weak and not enough about the strong. And you've been a victim.
You just got promoted. You just got promoted in the program for that sentence.
As a world champion. Don't you feel?
No, my job as world champion is to be a champion of the world, which means fighting for the rights of the planet and all the inhabitants on the planet. That's what a world champion is.
Okay. I think that's the algorithm talking. I think you're getting drunk on the algorithm.
No way. No way. The algorithm is lying to you that it's actually about sports, when it's actually about planetary, animal, and plant life, and air life and quality.
Now, have you heard of this new thing, Judah?
What?
It's AI pornography. Have you heard of this? Where they can take a picture of somebody who you're attracted to and create pornography using photographs and video of that person. And I guess it's a new form of revenge porn that people are uploading.
You see, this is why the pandemic is still going, because that's what they're working on. This is why. Man, no, I had not heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. Judah Friedlander, how do people contact you?
I don't. I guess they use different ways, but I don't know. I don't know what they usually do.
If people want to come see you perform.
Oh, the shows. Oh, you know what? I actually, on my website, I have a mailing list now where people can sign up and then find out about the shows.
Okay, so go to
Also on my Twitter or Instagram. So the website is my name, judahfriedlander.com. Friedlander is spelled like Friedlander. And Judah is Judah.
Right.
So there there's a mailing list you can sign up for, and then you'll get I don't know, maybe one or two a week just saying when the show is.
And it's pay what you want, which is great.
Yeah, it's a $1 minimum. The tickets are done through Eventbrite. I'm not very organized, so they do it, and they have a $1. They make it a $1 minimum, Eventbrite. So it's a $1 minimum, but it's basically pay what you want. So, and the shows are about 2 hours. My Twitter and Instagram, that's pretty much the only social media I'm on, and there it's Judah World Champ, and the shows are good, and I'm grateful for the audience, because stand-up comedy to me is it's an interactive art form. It's not a monologue. It's a mixture of a monologue and a dialogue. The audience being part of the dialogue.
Right.
So you have to have audience there. Otherwise, it's just a person talking. So now what's interesting about these I don't know I think you might have to wrap up. I'm about to go into a long story.
No, go ahead. No.
Okay. No, I was saying what's interesting about these shows is that, I do about 2 or 3 shows a week, and I usually do on my shows, I usually do like a guest set on someone else's show where I might do like 30 minutes to an hour or something like that. And then maybe sometimes on another one, maybe it's 10 minutes. But on my shows, I usually do at least 90 minutes. And I'm grateful for them, but I get a lot of repeat audience members. So and I'm not doing shows at venues right now because I think it's, I think there's still too much spread of the pandemic going on. And I think at so many venues, it's likely too easy to get. And if you do have it and if you don't know you have it, it's too easy to spread.
Right.
And I don't want to be spreading it or getting it.
Right.
Or being in an environment where so many people might be getting it. So I'm just doing shows. And since the government, in my opinion, has been a giant failure, like a long time ago, there was a cholera outbreak. And after that happened, what the governments did was, wow, we have to clean our water so people don't keep getting fucking sick from the diseased water. That's kind of where we are now, except it's with indoor air.
Right.
So like if you could like some countries actually have it. There's only a couple where they have it standardized. Like there's no way right now to measure coronavirus in the air, but you can measure ventilation.
Right.
With a CO2 meter. When people exhale, when they breathe and they exhale, they emit CO2. So aerosol scientists know that outside air where there's no humans is always at 420 particles per million. And when there's human breath around, that number goes up. And they know what a certain level is when you get to a certain number, how much other air from other people's that they just exhaled that you could be breathing in. Mm-hmm. So this little machine, it's like that big. And if that was like publicly displayed in places and you go in, you can know what the ventilation is. And you can have a much better idea of the safety of that. So that's something the government could easily be doing is, mandating, just like, when you go to indoor businesses and workplaces and schools, if you actually had like publicly displayed what the air quality was in there, you'd have a pretty good indicator of how risky it was for any kind of disease transmission. You know what schools have those? The school where Ashish Jha and Rochelle Walensky's kids go. They have that. And the parents of those kids can actually see a live stream of what the air quality is in their classrooms.
Really? And she's the head of the CDC, right?
Yeah, and they do it for their kids' school, but not for everyone else's. And this is something that is so simple. Like in a lot of places in Japan, and I think Belgium just passed a law where businesses have to publicly display the CO2 readings. So you can have an idea if a place is well ventilated or not, right? I mean, there's two ways to make indoor air better: ventilation and then filtration, right, using filters, HEPA filters or MERV 13 filters. That actually cleans the air in a way that's not unhealthy. They're using new technology now with UV light, and that's like very, very new. But HEPA and MERV 13 have been around for decades, and many businesses, already had them. Hospitals have already had them. Airplanes have already had them. But it's like these things need to be done in more places. And just opening a window, like I see school buses going around. It's like if one window was open, even if it was just cracked open a bit, that's going to make the air quality so much better in there. And people have a less chance of, like, so many people don't want to, like I mask. I wear an N95 anywhere I go, right? But it's like, that's what I'm doing. But if people don't want to wear a mask, of course I understand that. I don't want to wear a fucking mask, but I'm doing that because I think that's the appropriate thing for me to be doing. But that's the other thing. That's the government, again, putting it on the individual. That's rugged individualism. That's pick yourself up by your bootstraps. They do nothing, and then the people, it's all on them. because that's I think the main thing people should be pushing for is indoor air quality, because the pandemic is mostly spread indoors in poorly ventilated places. And like, you know, I walk around the city and I see all these stores, windows closed, doors closed. If they just open that, the chances would be quite a bit lower, you know. And that's something that's so simple and in many cases free, and there's like no education on it practically. The CDC has it buried on their website. The White House has it buried on their website, but it's like, get it out there. And then for businesses and schools and all kinds of places, mandate certain air quality things where it's that way it's not put on the individual, you know. So
This is fascinating.
That's a government failure of the pandemic.
Well, we went to an event, and I said, "We're getting out of here." It was people walking around without masks on, and the smell of human breath, no windows. It was out in Long Island. I said, "I don't care. I'm leaving," and we left because of that. And I'm so glad you said that. I disagree with one part of that. And I'm not so sure it's the government's fault, because if Joe Biden, and I'm not defending him, if he and the CDC mandated that, the pushback from people like DeSantis and the Republicans and the Chamber of Commerce, they would be, you can't get people to wear masks, and it's the government demand.
But I'm not even saying the government can make things so much safer, even if people don't wear masks again.
I know, but you're telling a restaurant to put these filters on, or
right,
even,
but you know what else can do it? The government can help those things get paid for. You know,
right?
Like De Blasio, when De Blasio was mayor, they spent over $40 million for air purifiers, air filtration for schools. They bought the wrong kind. They bought the kind that has technology that is not recommended by any aerosol scientist or by the CDC. There's just so much corruption.
It was his brother-in-law, though. I'm making that up, but
yeah, I don't know. But it was they had some kind of connection, I think. But you know, so
I think
there's just a lot the government. You know, there's just massive government, you know, corruption.
Right. So I just want to push back and say it's not it's not government corruption. It's government that has been co-opted by corporate America that won't allow the government to spend money on these things or demand.
I don't disagree with you. You know, the government works for the corporations for the most part. You know, they work for them a hell of a lot more than they do the people. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's the Chamber of Commerce.
But that's what people need to fight for. People need to fight for, you know, like I actually carry around a CO2 meter with me because I actually like learning and seeing what.
Now, where do you get a CO2? I don't know anything about this. So where would you?
Right. And this is something everyone should know. Everyone should know it, and that's a failure of public health in the country. That's what I'm saying. Everyone should know what a CO2 meter is.
How much does it cost?
There's a bunch of different kinds. The good one is expensive. It's about $225.
How much?
$225.
So like
it's about this big. It's about this big, so you can carry it with you. It runs on 2 AA batteries that last for like over 2 years. It never shuts off, and all you have to do is look at it, and it shows you a number, and that number will give you an idea of what the ventilation is, and thus like how much rebreathed air you're breathing in. Everyone should know. That's something that's a failure of government that people don't know that's out there. Yeah. And in places like Japan, when you go to a movie theater, it actually publicly displays what the ventilation is with the CO2 meter. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to get one.
It's a simple thing that, you know, because, you know, they say, make sure the place, you know, watch out for those poorly ventilated places. How do people know a place is poorly ventilated?
Right. Now, this is on your...
It's surprising. Like the New York City subway, the platforms
Yeah,
generally pretty well ventilated.
I would think so.
Yeah. On the train, it really varies a lot. It really varies a lot. It's actually, if the train's not that crowded, it's often quite a bit better ventilated than you think.
Right. People should go to judahfriedlander.com, hit the merch page, and Judah is selling CO2
I don't
meters.
even know how to say it. No, I'm not selling CO2 meters. I
I thought
don't
that was.
sell anything on my website.
Wait a second. You mean to tell me you come on my show and you're
I'm
talking
not
about
hawking anything.
you're not going to give the affiliate link that you cash in on when
To learn more about it, you can go to I got to look it up. I think it's cleanaircrew.org. And the one that's the best one is it's a Aranet 4 Home. That's the name of it.
Aranet.
ARANET, the number 4, and then Home. Yeah, I think Naltic is the company that makes it.
I'm just confused. I've never met anybody who would come on my show and plug something that they're not cashing in on.
I've nothing to do with them, and I wish they weren't so expensive.
Okay,
But it could be an effective tool. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little confused by this. I don't understand your motive.
Trader Joe's on the Lower East Side, badly ventilated. And
they're not union.
Key food that I've been to. Well ventilated.
Key
really
food?
Overpriced, but well ventilated. Yeah.
You should do like a ventilation report.
I have on Twitter. I've posted some of it on the subway. I've posted it some, and yeah, I'll get back to doing that more. But that's like something so simple. That would be like you. So you can actually take this thing. You can go. Let's say you want to go to a restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. Or you want to go to a movie, and you want to measure the ventilation, make sure it's a well ventilated place. You can actually go in there, wait a couple minutes, look at your CO2 meter, and be like, oh, this is actually pretty good, not that bad, Or you can be like, wow, that is fucking hugely high. I am, 20% of the times I'm breathing in someone else's breath. Maybe I'll skip this. That would be like after the cholera outbreak, they never cleaned the water. And if you ever wanted to go to a restaurant, you would go in there, sneak into the bathroom or kitchen, pull out a little bit of water, and then put a cholera tester in the water to see if it's safe. Then be like, okay, we can eat here. It's like just fucking. It's something that can be done. Is just, ventilate and filtrate indoor air at places, and all the people who fucking hate masks and shit will have a less chance of getting sick.
Yeah. This is something
to me that seems like something, no matter where you stand on the spectrum of public health and the pandemic, whether you're someone who's against all the vaccines or who's against all the masks or who you're for all the vaccines and for all the masks. I think everyone should be able to agree that, hey, let's have indoor air where there's less disease floating around. I would think, but who knows? Maybe a lot of people would want a lot of disease floating around. I don't know.
Fascinating. Comedy.
Another simple one for airplanes, right?
Yeah.
Airplanes are always bragging about, our air is the best and everything. Now, with our ventilation and our filtration, right? But when you're this far away from someone, it's not going to do that much. Another thing, though, that they don't do is during the boarding process and the deplaning process, which is often a long period of time, they don't have their air ventilation or filtration on. It's like, so put that shit on the whole time, and you're going to, at least theoretically, spread less disease. Yeah.
It's
but they're
not
too
just
cheap to do that.
Yeah, but it's not just America, is it? It's
no. I think Europe's worse than us.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
I think the wealthier the country, the more arrogant that we're above this.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I always thought we were the dumbest country.
The arrogance of the wealthy countries is, we're wealthy. We're perfect. We don't need to do that shit. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Europe has a lot less masking than the U.S. Yeah. They're like,
Interesting.
it's like Florida everywhere there. People shit on Florida a lot, and Florida deserves a lot of criticism,
Yeah.
but also I think it gets over criticized as well. I think America often scapegoats Florida for how shitty it is.
Yeah, because there's also Arizona.
And also New York, you see it. You see. I mean, but I can go on and on about the pandemic stuff, but
New York is different. But anyway, let me ask you.
I think the masking is terrible in New York.
It's
where the
unbelievable.
masking's good in New York? In lower income immigrant neighborhoods. That's where the
Right.
masking is better. You go to your wealthy white Whole Foods neighborhoods, you'll never see a more proud anti-masker than a wealthy person at Whole Foods.
Right.
They love to show off their face. They love it. Yeah.
Well, they paid for it.
They're not going to stoop to the mask wearing. That's for their help. They don't do that.
Right.
There's a lot of classism involved and narcissism with that stuff, I think. But that's me. That's my.
No, I this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Before you go, thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The eventual return to nightclubs. What do you think?
I'm working on it. I realize, I'm in a great minority of someone who, because before the pandemic, I would probably be put in the category of someone who is out doing shows more than just about anybody. I'm someone who is out, often 7 nights a week. If I'm in the city, 2 to 5 spots a night. And if I'm touring, basically a show every night, so, and then to go to like nothing and then just doing, so instead, this is what I forgot to talk about earlier, if I can continue. for a
Yes,
second.
please.
So like one of the great things about New York, why it can be so good for a comedian to be in New York, is the amount of stage time that is possible. If you really hustle, you can get on stage 2 to 5 times a night, right? That means if you have a new joke you're working on, you can work on it, tweak on it, grow it 2 to 5 times a night,
Right.
which is great. And for someone like me who does a lot of writing on stage, and by that I mean, you go up with a new joke, and then the next show you go up and do it again, and then a new idea pops into your head from what you did last time or the situation you're in, and you come up with another one, and you just keep building it, right? So that's something with the pandemic, because I'm doing shows on the internet, and I don't have that big of a audience following that coming to the shows, and like I said, I'm grateful for the audience that comes, but there's a lot. If my shows, I'd say maybe if 80%, 90% of the audience saw me last week and the week before that, I have to come up with a
Right.
lot of new material.
Right.
So it's like, I'm coming up with more material probably than pre-pandemic, but I'm not tweaking it nearly as much and not growing it as much. So where before I was coming up with less jokes, but those jokes were honed to in much more depth than
I
what
see.
I'm doing now. So that's probably on a art and work point of it. That's probably what I miss the most with that, is not having that opportunity to really, really get in. Really get in with all your stuff and really grow it, and build it.
You don't have to answer this question,
Yeah.
but I've had this conversation with a lot of comedians. Do you think the audience, especially a club audience, gets in the way of good comedy? Do you think working the clubs, because I started in San Francisco and we were
What
told
year? What year?
83, 84.
Okay.
And we were told in San Francisco, they had gatekeepers back then. In order to get on stage, you couldn't be dirty, you couldn't be racist, you couldn't be sexist, you had to be. This was San Francisco.
Yeah.
They were very,
When I started in New York, it was that way at first.
very
And
strict.
a lot of that's changed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are no more gatekeepers.
No, I think there's still tons of gatekeepers. The gatekeeping style has changed, or the their criteria has changed, but there's still plenty of gatekeepers, I think.
Right. One of the great gatekeepers of San Francisco, Tom Sawyer, who ran Cobb's, and he used to say, do not work the road. You pick up bad habits. You're going to go out on the road.
First in late 80s, early 90s in New York, they would say the same thing. They really shit on the road comics, and they don't anymore. They really used to. And everyone was like, you got to get that tight 5 clean so you can get on the Tonight Show. That was like the general thread in the clubs. Yeah.
And so when you decide to make money and you go on the road, as you say, you're riding with the audience. Well, if you're playing a generic comedy club out on the road and you're writing with a generic audience, you're going to write generic material. Do you think you might get a purer form of comedy by doing it the way you're doing it now? Where it doesn't need to...
Sometimes you can make that argument, and in some cases, there can be some of that. I also think, like, even before the pandemic, I stopped using an agent or a manager. I haven't used one for years. I book myself, and I would, probably more than 95% of the time, not do comedy clubs. And so I do, other venues, and, and it was, music venues, and some of them were music venues that would sometimes have comedy and stuff like that. Sometimes small theaters. But when I would do those, I'm not into that marketing infrastructure that the comedy clubs have. So the only people coming to me to see my shows are people who are actually, they see that I'm coming to their town and they want to go to that show in particular. Right. Where if I'm booked at a comedy club, no matter how big of a following I might have, I'd say at least 30% of the audience, probably 20, 30% of the audience is, they don't know who they're seeing that night. They're just, somehow they're going to the comedy club that weekend. You know what I mean? So, now that being said, I truly think bad habits can be picked up everywhere. I don't think bad habits are picked up just at comedy clubs. I think at your cool hipster, alternative spaces, I don't know, whatever they want to call them, what venues I'm talking about. Very bad habits.
I agree.
Different bad habits, but still bad habits. You can pick up when an audience is, and even if you're a touring comic and 100% of the people coming there are just coming to see you and they're great, even that you can pick up bad habits. Because all of a sudden you don't have hecklers. Everyone's, you might do an audience where everyone's just eating up everything you're saying. You can pick up a lot of bad habits with a good crowd. So I think it's important as a comic to actually do shitty gigs and good gigs.
Yeah. I've never been famous. You have. So what are the bad habits you pick up when people are...
But you can do it. I don't think fame necessarily has anything to do with it. There's some of these rooms, that get more of like an NPR-ish type crowd, for lack of a better term. The hipster, the cool rooms,
white people.
Those crowds, the audiences are often one demographic. They all read the same blogs. They all drink the same kind of coffee or beer or whatever. It's a conformity. It's its own type of conformity.
Right.
So everyone is, sometimes at those shows, everyone's going there and they're like, they all know, oh, we're so cool because we're here. And now we're going to hear a comic who's also, I don't know if there's comedy going on. It's basically a comic and an audience both just confirming that they're all cool. So, and that seems to be the general theme of the fucking show. It's like, okay, I guess everyone's just sucking each other off. And that's what this is, just a fucking little narcissism festival. So you can certainly pick up a lot of bad habits there.
Right.
Because if you just go up there and everyone's like, oh, I heard this person's cool and we're supposed to like them.
Right.
And then they go on stage and like, yeah, I'm the cool guy and you guys are cool and you're supposed to like me. And then how the fuck are you going to be a good comic doing that shit in
Right.
that kind of an environment? You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
so whereas in, so I mean, you can make the argument that like, so it really depends how you handle it, you know? So if you're doing a shit room or, you know, a room where, wow, this crowd really likes, they really want to hear the same old tired, bigoted jokes or whatever. If you can go in there with stuff that's not the stuff that they're looking for and figure out a way to make them laugh,
Exactly.
you can become a really good fucking comic that
Right.
way. So,
Right.
what I'm saying is, so you have to always be careful of bad habits, you know, and like, you know, doing shows online sometimes, you know, there can be less, you know, problematic audience members. It can still happen sometimes, but sometimes there might be less problematic audience members. Or if you're a comic who is a well-known or has a draw and you're just getting people who like they heard you're there and they want to go see you, sometimes there's less problems that way. So you can get a little soft as a comic where you're only going to do well if you got a really good hot crowd, you know, and that doesn't make you a better comic. What it does do, those kind of rooms, is because you're not getting interrupted constantly by hecklers or whatever, the audience is more patient. So if you have something, a bit that might be a great bit, but it requires a longer attention span, that audience can be great and really help you develop, you know, maybe some more intricate or subtle or longer types of bits. Where at a comedy club that has a very short attention span, whether they're drunk or whatever, you know, you gotta hit them like that hard. But that's a good skill to have too. So I think it's important to really do
Right.
really a big variety, as big a variety as you can of shows and rooms as you can.
I agree with you. In San Francisco, there were, and then we'll wrap it up. This is fantastic. In San Francisco, there was the Holy City Zoo,
All right, I heard of that. I never did that.
which is like the Velveeta room in Austin. It's like a closet where everybody's on top of each other. The CO2 meters are off.
Those are like the best rooms for comedy and the worst for the pandemic.
Yeah, and great for comedy, but hard rooms because
Oh, okay.
they weren't easy. And then there was another club called the Other Cafe in the Haight, which
I don't know that one.
and it was a very genteel kind of comedy that was the antithesis of the Holy City Zoo. And when I was starting out, there were two types of comics. There was a Holy City Zoo comic and an Other Cafe comic, and both were great. But the Holy City Zoo comics were rock'em sock'em robots. I mean, you would go and I was a Holy City Zoo comic, and you could put us in any situation. We wanted to go into the worst situations,
Right.
and do
or
comedy.
that's called legs, having legs or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a point later in my career when I was making enough money as a comedy writer where I could turn down gigs, but I wouldn't do it. I would play these casinos in like Palm Springs. Like I would leave a writing job at 7:00 and I would pick up one of my kids. I go, "You want to watch Daddy die?" And they go, "Sure." I would drive down to Palm Springs for little to no money, go into a casino, and you could hear
Sure.
the nickels falling into the
Yeah.
and people would say, "Why are you doing this?" And let's say they were paying me $50. I can't remember.
Right.
Plus gas and a meal.
Right.
And I would say, if somebody said to you, "Drive down, I want you to drive to Palm Springs tonight and pick up some money. There's $50 in an envelope, and we'll feed you and pay for your gas." Would you do it? I would.
Yeah.
If I could listen to some music, go for a drive, and
I do comedy for free, and
Yeah.
I still often do it for free.
right, and
I do someone else's show every Monday night. I do about an hour. That's free.
Right.
I get no money for that.
and yeah. Anyway, great conversation. Judah Friedlander. Go to
Well, we had like two different conversations.
I know. I picked up on it. I could read you were done. You didn't want to do the fake conversation. You had
Well, it's not fake. It's just, it was something else. It's
Right.
we're doing.
yeah, it was great.
That was like basically a satirical conversation,
Right.
of some level.
Right, we were out stupiding each other.
Yeah,
and then I could
that
tell
was
you
just-
wanted to get serious.
Right.
I love stupid conversations.
Well, they're both different. They're both good.
Yeah.
They or can be good or bad, but
Out stupiding, the greatest conversation of two out stupiding each other that I've ever heard. Robert Smigel, Brian Rich, who just passed away, and Andy Breckman, who created Monk. We were driving to the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia in 2016. Smigel and I were in the front, and Andy Breckman.
was this for like the Triumph?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Andy Breckman and Brian Rich. Brian Rich came up with the masturbating bear on Conan. We just lost
Okay,
him.
okay.
I mean, just the
No,
funniest.
I saw part of your show where you guys were doing a tribute. Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian, I never like to mention that somebody went to Harvard because I don't like Harvard graduates. But Brian, like you met him and you go, oh, of course this guy's a Harvard. I mean, the guy was just, of course, this guy got into Harvard when he was 2, just a genius. And Andy Breckman, and they would outstupid one another. They would just start talking, and from New York to Philadelphia, the two of them had the dumbest conversation. Like Smigel and I just listened for 4 hours, and I couldn't believe how they were able to get
Right.
dumber and dumber and dumber and just stick with it. And Conan said something really brilliant on his last show.
O'Brien?
For TBS. O'Brien, no, the Barbarian. He said, "I don't know much. I'm ruining it, but something to the effect, I don't know much, but I do know that if you take really find the smartest people in the world and make them act stupid, that's the secret to comedy."
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I love that.
I don't know, but I mean, I wasn't trying to out stupid you or anything. I was just
Yes, you were.
no, I was just just doing some trying to do some ridiculous satire stuff, and then you kept throwing all this
Hey, I got
kind of
deep.
ridiculous stuff. Yeah.
I got a platform pulled one of my podcasts because AI can't pick up on sarcasm. I got.
I can see that. Yeah. I
was-
mean, even in my stand-up act, if you take so many things I say word for word, it's like, wow, it's,
Yeah, it was like it almost made me happy.
yeah.
Because they said I was a COVID denier
Denier. Right.
because I was sarcastically agreeing.
Right. Yeah.
And I went,
But
wow.
It's so scary that's why the whole AI shit is really, it's scary shit.
Well, that's what we said about the buggy whip. Remember?
Right. But then again, look at how many humans and humans who've been in positions of censorship who don't get sarcasm
I know.
or don't want to get sarcasm or
Right.
don't want sarcasm out there or satire out there.
Yeah. I've never been a big fan of sarcasm, but sometimes it's the only way to get through to people. Anyway, JudahFriedlander.com. Thank you, buddy. Please
Thanks,
come
man.
back.
Be well.
You too.
Yeah, you got it.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show. You happy, self-actualized hump.
Time now for the Hirschenfelds.
Hi, David.
Hello, Dr. Hirschenfeld. Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld is a real live Freudian psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, the real thing. And Ethan Hirschenfeld is not a real psychiatrist. That's why I go to him instead. I go to Dr. Samuel Benjamin, his alter ego. Ethan is the author of the hysterical Today Is Now, which you can purchase. This is the only book we allow you to purchase on, I won't say the name. What is the name? Amazon. You get a special dispensation. You can go to Amazon because that's the only place to buy Today Is Now by your alter ego, Dr. Samuel Benjamin, and we'll talk about IntraQuest, your new podcast that you're doing with my friend Mikey Kaplan, brilliant comedian.
And,
yes.
And good news, the Today Is Now mockumentary is finishing up quite soon. I've been able to show it to some select viewers, like Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld.
Oh.
It's outrageous.
It's outrageously good. Now,
It's outrageous.
It's an outrage.
have you ever been critical of your son, Dr. Hirschenfeld? Have you ever said, I don't think that's funny? I don't think, like when...
He did once. I remember once when he really lost it in the 80s.
What happened? Well, we all lost it in the 80s, but what happened?
A sibling of mine was refusing to fill out his draft card and just being kind of vaguely revolutionary, saying, no, I'm not going to, sign my name on that document. And then finally, my father convinced him that he had to, or he'd get into big trouble. And right as he was putting pen to paper, I walked by and I said, wow, you're caving? So he said, yeah, you're right. And then he walked out of the room. and the doctor was ripshit angry. Can we say ripshit? No,
Sure.
He was,
Yeah.
He gritted his teeth and he said, I'm really pissed.
Now, what if it were the 60s, Dr. Hirschenfeld, and it was the Vietnam War?
I would have said, right on, brother.
A different time. These are some of the things, speaking of the Vietnam War, these are some of the things I want to ask you about. Group violence. We saw, I don't want to get into specifics, but we saw the cops in Memphis, the video. I didn't watch it.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I didn't watch either, but I have to say, group violence, the one thing that's better about it is you don't get lonely.
Unless you're the victim.
Well, but if you have company. If you're doing solo violence, it can just, it's just you and the hammer and the victim. Yeah.
That's
Nice
so
to have a friend.
you're saying one of the reasons Paul Pelosi healed so quickly was he wasn't alone at the time.
It's good to have company. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes it's tough because after the company leaves, you got to do the dishes. But company in general is a good thing.
Do we need to see
There's a certain amount of truth to what my naive colleague is saying. Freud wrote a brilliant paper that I would recommend to everybody on group psychology.
Well, listen, before you go on, the doctor says it was brilliant. He got a B- on it.
Who? Freud? He got a B-? Okay.
It was a good paper. It was not a great. Okay, but go on.
In which he said that you take a bunch of individual people by themselves, and if you ask them each individually, would you hang this guy on a tree? They would say, no, are you crazy? It's immoral, whatever. You put them together in a group, and their individual conscience disappears, and it gets subsumed into a group conscience. And then these 10 guys, upstanding citizens, can turn into a lynch mob because nobody feels any kind of personal responsibility. The group is doing this.
It's true. And it's also why it's much safer in the cities because we have way fewer trees.
So you're saying that's why we won't go there, but
shrubbery, much safer. It's very low to the ground.
During another time, we'll move on, but I see where you're going. Group psychology. So when you watch a football game, when you see the Eagles playing and the crowd going nuts, that could be a lynching or a pogrom waiting to happen.
You pronounce
if it went in the right direction, yeah.
Those people, I watched Philadelphia celebrating, with the right direction, the wrong leadership, those people could be, it's like the mighty Colorado. You could just redirect it towards Jews, blacks, or Mexicans or Arabs, right?
There's no water in the Colorado anymore.
True.
Yeah. But look at soccer violence. It's the same thing. Any one of those criminals individually might be a very nice guy.
And so is football in this country necessary to let off the steam so we don't all explode? Is that the purpose of professional sports, to give people somebody to hate without it?
I think the actual purpose is to sell chicken fingers. It seems mostly to sell fried food. It's mostly to sell various forms of meat and alcohol. So that's mostly what it's there for. And cars.
And the danger is what? Because you want to surrender your ego to something bigger than yourself.
Yes, and the big danger is that you'll notice if you ever observe one of these games, the people on the field have all sorts of padding and helmets on them. Mm-hmm. But the people in the stands who are also getting into violent confrontations, they have no padding.
So they're the real heroes.
Well, it's more dangerous, I would say, to be a fan of these things than to be, because those guys are at least protected and they're getting paid. The fans are paying and have no padding. And they're drinking. It's a trifecta. It's really like a sacrificial, it's like being an Aztec virgin going into one of those things. I haven't been to one in many years.
If you go to a Springsteen concert or you go see Bono, it becomes a cathedral and you give up yourself to the 50,000 people in the stadium and you all become one, and it's supposed to be. I can't experience that.
No, I went to a Springsteen concert once. A friend had tickets. I bought the pair off of him, went with a friend, and we left after 2 songs because it turns out if you go to see Springsteen in Giant Stadium, all of New Jersey is singing along with every single song, and he's encouraging it. So basically, I spent $150 to listen to a bunch of people from Passaic yelling his lyrics. It was just so obnoxious. We were just out of there. Yeah.
Wow, that would, yes. I don't get the live. Maybe it's because I spent so many years in a comedy club that when I go to a Broadway play, it really takes a lot for me to lose myself in live theater. A movie, I can lose myself in a movie, but if I'm surrounded by other people.
So hard. Although I did have the experience recently, a couple of Sunday nights ago, I went to the final performance of The Old Man in the Swimming Pool, Mike Birbiglia, in Lincoln Center. It was a monologue, hour and a half. Just great. I'd never seen him live before. It was fantastic.
He's amazing.
So, even though there was some people with their milk duds doing that really loud,
right? And
instead of just scarfing it down at the beginning, they've calculated how to make it last the entire show, and then they're going to reach very loudly back, and they think they're being surreptitious, but they're annoying everyone.
Right.
Or maybe it's just me, but I think it's everybody.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah. Some people are easier. It's easier for some people to completely lose themselves in the theater, or in a play. So the cops beating up a joint effort, collaborating to kill somebody. Is it bonding? Are they bonding, or is it a sign of we're in this together?
They're not operating as individuals. I would guess that not one of those guys would have done that one-on-one. Could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Well, in no small measure, because he would not have been physically able to. It's much harder to beat someone to death on your own.
Right.
So there's that element of it. But I don't know that they're bonding. What I think is happening, and I don't know, but it seems to me like what's happening is they're just losing their I guess it's what you said, doctor. It's losing that feeling of individual responsibility.
Right.
The gloves come off, is, you know, I guess literally, metaphorically. I guess there's also a good possibility that each of these guys individually, or at least some of them, or I know for sure one of them was convicted of something in the past. So there was at least one criminal among those cops.
Yeah.
So I think probably in a small group of people, it really takes one ringleader to then get everybody going, and then
Here's something.
Go do it, guys. Yeah.
Something I've seen at work, and let's just leave it at work. I have seen employees, people at work who are about to get fired, and they have a stink on them. And everyone can tell this person is about to get fired. There's this, oh, this is going to be interesting. Let's see if this guy can make it through the week. And I watch as they kind of poke at the guy, and I say, "Hey, leave me alone." No, and the group wants to see this one person ostracized. It makes them, what's going on? Because I even noticed that when I would work on shows and somebody was about to get fired, I would secretly, I'd say out loud, I feel sorry for the guy. But deep down, I was looking forward to going to...
It's a psychological version of musical chairs, where there's a feeling of every man for himself, or every person for himself. So if you sense that there's a weak one in the group, you're sort of doing your little part to step on them and make sure that you don't lose your spot. Here's an opportunity maybe to put somebody down who's a potential threat to you.
And you don't want to be associated with them.
Right. There's a stink on that person, and nobody wants to be seen talking to them. I see that like in comedy clubs where comedians are waiting to go on, and there's this dynamic of who's talking to whom, and you don't want to be around somebody who has a stink on them.
Especially when someone like you has a very weak character.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. So it was meant as a compliment.
Thank you. I'll take that as a. I've been in situations where they're in a writing room, which can be off. God, that's a beautiful dog. That is just a spectacular.
I was waiting for you to notice.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
My favorite dog.
He likes to sit up like a human.
Yeah.
That's his big trick.
So I've been in writing rooms where a writer was really annoying. He didn't play nicely. And then he would leave the room, and then everybody would crap on him. And we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of this. He's so annoying. He's so annoying. And I would say, wait a second. We get rid of him. Who's next? Because there's got to be somebody in this room that we all hate. And I don't want it to be me, because I've been that writer who everybody hates. Can a group exist? Can a large family exist without everybody complaining about a sister-in-law or an aunt or a nephew that is always the subject of worrying or complaining? And
I think if you're the person who thinks that that's possible, then you're that person. So it's very dangerous to say, yeah, there are lots of families. I mean, my family, there's no one like that. In my family, there's no one who, when he leaves the room, everyone says, man, that guy's a pain in the ass. He's so critical. He's kind of a dick. If he wasn't in the family, we wouldn't invite him. There's definitely no one like that in my family.
I've noticed that when you get groups of comedy writers together or large families together, instead of talking about a great play or movie or book, there's one, if we could just get rid of this one relative or this one comedy writer, then all would be well in the world.
Part of that is the phenomenon of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So we all bond over making that person an enemy.
And yet we can't bond over loving the same woman.
Maybe you can, but I think this is easier to do it this way.
Yeah, it's like that phenomenon of in any institution, everyone complaining about the cafeteria food.
So
You're very uplifting and create an esprit du corps just by talking about how bad the.
is it easier for you and me to bond over someone we hate than someone we love?
I hate is a very strong word. I would say maybe it's easy and fun to bond over someone who you can make fun of.
But if Ethan and I shared a love for the same human being, a lust for the same human being, then we would be at odds. But if we
That leads to competition.
Or a threesome.
Has there ever been a successful threesome? Is it possible? I won't ask the real doctor. Is it possible to have a menage a trois where everybody wraps up and says, that went well, that was equal, the love was evenly distributed, nobody felt left out?
It is. I think the difficulty of that situation is highly overrated. The key is it's very simple. There's a very simple rule to remember in this. If you're exploring this, if you're curious about it, if you have a partner you're talking about it with, the key is that any of those arrangements are possible and go very well if you stick to the prime numbers. So a threesome works, a five-some works, a seven-some works. But if you go an 11-some, if you try to do a non-prime menage, it's a disaster. Because then you end up in all sorts of, because you divide by two, then everyone's pairing off.
Wow.
Before you know it, it's like a medieval dance. So keep it prime. Even a one-some, you'll notice one is also prime. It works just fine. Many people have more experience with a one-some than a threesome. The numbers it's outlandish. It's like thousands of times more popular than one-some.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow. All right.
Remember the prime numbers, and you're good to go.
Oh, my God. Tell me about IntraQuest.
IntraQuest. Now, the key thing is it's on iHeartRadio,
right.
IntraQuest. And the other key thing is it's two words. It's not IntraQuest, it's IntraQuest. Mm-hmm. And it stars some really excellent comedians, including Michael Broussard. You can see his special on Netflix. And MYQ Kaplan. I say right. MYQ. You pronounce it Mickey, is that right?
Mikey Kaplan. MYQ Kaplan, who's a hilarious comedian. Yeah. I was on a show with him in November. He's incredible. It also stars Mike Leibovitz. I did a show with him at Zanies a number of years ago outside of Chicago. He's just great. And it's if you're into like fantasy, adventure, sci-fi, drama, radio drama, kookiness, intergalactic mishigas, this is the show for you. By the way, that was the original name of the Andromeda strain. Intergalactic mishigas.
The original name of Star Wars. And the studio said, Spielberg. No, it's probably not Spielberg. It's the other guy.
Lucas, yeah.
Close Encounters, that's what it was.
Oh, right. Let's do that again. The original name of Close Encounters was Intergalactic Mishigas. Yeah.
And the studio says, look, Mr. Spielberg, we really think you have a great ear for this stuff. But the title is a little, we need to gentilize your title a little bit.
Well, this sounds great. So it's called IntraQuest.
IntraQuest on iHeartRadio. Episode 1 dropped today. You can stream it all over the place. have some paper towels on hand.
For the streaming.
For the streaming. No, it's streaming. You can get it on Apple, on what's that called? Apple Podcasts.
Right.
iHeartRadio. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Quest.
IntraQuest.
Important, remember, it's not InterQuest. It's intra, which means within.
Okay.
Inter, between. It's IntraQuest.
Okay.
Listen to it. Enjoy it.
All right.
Live the lifestyle.
Right.
Put on the costumes.
So it's intra, not inter. And I wanted to ask you about interment, about death, if you don't mind, since this will be the last thing we talk about. Hopefully not the last thing we ever talk about. I've been watching the Republicans take control of the House. Anything that will kill you, therefore, guns, tobacco, fossil fuel, violence, red meat, whatever. Go ahead.
They're not for abortion.
If it involves something that isn't alive yet.
And they are for resurrection. They're the party of the resurrection, which is eternal life. So in the end, they might be for death from this incarnation, but they stand for and they stand by and they vote for eternal life through the resurrection.
And is that what we don't understand about them, that they have maybe a more mature attitude towards death?
No.
They're against universal health care. They're against doctors. They're against vaccines.
For other people. They're for death for other people, not for themselves. They're different from some Islamic groups who say about the West, they say this about Israel, we will win because you people love life and we love death.
Are you quoting something real, or are you quoting
a suicide bomber? A suicide.
Something real, yeah, something real. And see, whenever I get challenged by a member of my family, I tell them to Google it. And invariably, at the end, they say, you're right.
Right.
Anyway, this is another one.
Golda Meir said famously, if only the whatevers loved their children as much as they hate the Israelis.
Yeah.
Something like that. And well, I've watched some of those suicide videos from the early aughts. That's what they said.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah. So they're extremist maniacs, and also I just wouldn't.
I used to direct a couple of suicide videos that they made. I'm not proud of it. They weren't.
A gig is a gig.
Yeah, and he had to do it in one take. But go ahead. So these are people who say, like a kamikaze. How do you, if somebody is willing to die, how do you fight somebody who's willing to die?
Right. I would simply say, and then we don't need to get into this, but I would say that's definitely not unique to any one religion. I think there are extremists, murderous, maniacs of all stripes.
There's a scene in Godfather 2 in Cuba where Michael sees one of Castro's soldiers fall on a grenade. And he says to Hyman Roth, I think we're in trouble because if his soldiers are willing to jump on a grenade and die for the cause, how do we compete?
Right.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Death. We were talking about Republicans. Yeah. You're saying they want death for others, but not themselves. But I disagree.
Republicans, yes.
I disagree. I think I see a lot of Republicans who don't take care of themselves. They lead unhealthy lifestyles.
But that's because they can't help it. They can't help being alcoholics or pigs or anything like that. But I will bet, I don't know this for a fact, that many of the people who say that the pandemic was a hoax, I'll bet you they all got vaccinated. Not all, but a lot of them.
Well, let me ask the fake doctor, author of Today Is Now, Dr. Samuel Benjamin. Do you agree with the real doctor about that? Do you think they really got vaccinated? Or do you think that there's...
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Total hypocrites. It's all theater from these guys. I agree. I think most of what they say is just to get reelected. They're saying what they think their constituents want to hear. And then they go and they do all the things that they imagine the coastal elites are doing. They want to eat in fancy restaurants. They want to drive fancy cars. They want to go to top universities. They're probably secretly intersex, transgender vegans secretly behind closed doors. No, I don't know what they're up to, but
if you're a politician, if you're a religious leader who tells people, advises people to do things that you know will kill them, if you're an anti-vaxxer for money, are you capable? Like, what's the pathology? What's the diagnosis?
Self-interest above everything else. Perceived self-interest. And it works with a small percent, not small, 40% of the population, which is fairly big.
I think in the DSM, in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual number 3, those people were called douchebags.
You and the Latin words, I don't understand. Why can't you guys speak English?
Subsequently, it was revised, but that was the original diagnosis.
So a patient, let me ask the real doctor.
Well, wait a second. See, we were all bonding over making fun
Yes.
of those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a patient comes in and says, I'm making a lot of money running a website telling people that ivermectin works and people shouldn't get blah, blah, all that stuff. I kind of know it's wrong, but I'm making a fortune, doctor. What do? Do you say, tell me about your mother? Or do you pass judgment?
I never say that. But I listen for any conflict. I once had a guy who came in. He was a businessman who had different kinds of businesses. He had bought a business recently where he made bullets. And he said this was the most fantastic business that he ever came across. It worked 365 days a year, including Christmas, New Year's, 3 shifts a day, bullets. There's just an insatiable need for bullets. And I don't express outrage or anything. But at some point, I saw in a room to point out his conflict over this. And he could see it. And that's the last time I ever saw him.
Was the conflict, should I move into bombs or should I stick with the bullets? I'm good at bullets. Should I expand it? So he didn't want to explore. He didn't want to go there. Interesting.
Nope.
Wow.
All right. Last question. This is great. This is one of our best ever. I become a billionaire. Never have to work again for the rest of my life. And
well, $1 billion isn't what he used.
That's true. At least not in New York.
A little breathing room. But
I move, let's say, to Iowa, where $1 billion goes a lot further. And I decide my kid is never going to have to work again. My children will never, ever have to do anything they don't want to do. They don't have to go to college. The law says you have to go to school. So you can go, you have to stay in school till you're 16, 17, or 18. Then I'm going to hand you money, and you'll never have to work or worry about money. I want you to read catalogs and just buy things and pursue whatever you're interested in. Is that automatically a recipe for drug addiction? Can a child, an adult, survive a parent who does that to their kid?
Parenting, allow me to just
Yeah.
get going here. Parenting, and I say this as someone who is not a parent, parenting can be both. Actually, why don't you guys?
It wasn't so apparent being a parent, was it?
Parenting, I just realized it's harder than I thought.
Not if I was a great parent in my mind, I was a great parent.
Yeah.
I didn't care, which I think is the secret to parenting. Just don't care. Doctor,
I have seen kids who have been raised like that.
are there really kids who are raised that way?
Yes, there are. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything because we're incredibly rich. Most often, it truly is a recipe for disaster. Once in a while, you have a kid who nevertheless, and how we did this or she did this is not always easy to figure out. But sometimes somebody comes out of an environment like that and wants to be a productive human being and wants to be different from everybody else in the family. So I think mostly it's a recipe for disaster, but sometimes it isn't.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So the professional community, doctors, priests, rabbis, ministers, lawyers, if you polled people who have counseled the children of billionaires, if you polled people who work for billionaires, advise billionaires, what percentage would you guess would say it's not healthy to leave $1 billion to your children? What do you think? Again, we're just spitballing here, but what percentage of professionals like yourself would think, I don't think it's a good idea to leave $1 billion to your kids?
I defer to my colleague.
The only person I know in this with this problem was Buffett, and I know Warren Buffett intentionally didn't leave them gobs of money. He gave most of it to.
I think Howie Buffett became first of all, I think Howie Buffett would have preferred being a boy named Sue instead of Howie. Who names their Howie Buffett? I think he turned to agriculture, like he has a big farm somewhere.
I just know that I think he intentionally, he made sure to give them an amount that wasn't going to destroy them in the way you're talking about, that they had to, and that they went ahead and pursued something.
I bet they get $1 billion, at least $1 billion.
I don't know. I think he gave most of it away to, no, I think it's a lot less than that. He gave most of it to the Gates, that pledge that Gates took and Buffett took, so.
And it depends how it is given. If it's given with the idea, hey, guy, you're on easy street. You never have to lift a finger. You can just live it up.
Also, if it's given.
What's that?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
As opposed to, hey, I'm giving you this thing. It's really not the most important thing in the world. I want you to do something good with it, and I want you to develop yourself in some good way. That's totally different. So it's not so much the amount of the dollars.
Well, I guess at a huge amount it is. But I was also going to say it really depends if you're going to give them, if you're giving them cash, for example, versus giving it to them all in nickels. It's hard, even though it's $1 billion, it's just
Right.
hard to move that around. It's very cumbersome.
Are there people in New York City, and I think there are, and then we'll wrap it up, who could go through $1 billion in a year? If you had to go through $1 billion,
No.
is it possible to spend $1 billion?
There was a rumor, by the way, speaking of the nickels, that when I was a kid, there was a rumor that Rockefeller had his whole fortune in dimes. And I believed it for a while.
Wasn't he famous for giving out dimes to everybody?
That was it.
That was,
Yeah.
and you think he could have afforded a better toupee? That was the worst, as bad as Frank Luntz. A great man once said, I think it was Dr. Samuel Benjamin,
Yes.
who pointed out that the dime is smaller than the nickel. And I never forgot that. Why is the dime smaller than the nickel? Do you remember?
No one knows. It's a mystery.
No, you explained why.
It's worth twice as much, but it's half the size.
Why is it half the size?
By the way, let me
Oh, excuse me. Let me. You explained why. That
It
if
was just another dose of Bubamyces.
no, you said it was brilliant. You said a dime is smaller than a nickel because it doesn't have to be big. It's worth more.
There you go.
That
I like it. Yeah, it has a lot of
self-worth. Yeah. Go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, most of the Rockefellers, because of some kind of family ethos, Presbyterian work thing, most of them turned out to be productive people in one way or another. Nelson Rockefeller, there was one who devoted her life to collecting rhododendrons of 1 million different species in the Himalayas. They did stuff.
Right.
As opposed to a family like the Kennedys, who, except for Bobby, but even including him for a while, they produced playboys.
Right. Who turned to politics or the Bush family, but the Kennedys didn't have Rockefeller money. By the way, the Rockefellers divested themselves of ExxonMobil stock.
Good.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, they said, that's it. We're done. Not to save the planet. They think it's a bad investment. No, they said it was. They said this is destroying the planet and we want no part of it. Fantastic.
And now we learn that Exxon knew this 20 years ago.
Yep. Let's find out what you're reading, and then we'll plug some gigs. This was one of our best ones ever. What are you reading?
If you keep saying that, people are going to start to believe it.
Well, this was great.
Okay.
What are you reading?
I'm reading this book that's really good. It's a French book called Yoga, but it's yoga because it's French. And it's one of these books that explores a guy's exploration of an ancient discipline. It's a good memoir.
And Dr. Hirschenfeld, what are you reading?
I am listening to Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which is a fabulous book, but I've read it before. But what I learned, the hero is called Pip, right? His real name was Philip, like me. The way he got the name Pip is when he was a very little kid, he couldn't pronounce Philip. He would call himself Pip, and that stuck as his nickname. I just read that. When I was a little kid, I couldn't pronounce Philip either. So I would call myself Up. And when any of my loving aunts would say, "What's your name?" I would say, Up. They would say, Up. And I would get enraged and say, "No, Up." Well, me and Pip, we have something in common.
And that's why you always punch the elevator operator in your building. Up. Great. And so IntraQuest, the podcast, and the book is Today Is Now by Dr. Samuel Benjamin. Go buy it. Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld, and thank you, Ethan Hirschenfeld.
Thank you.
Bye, David. Thank you.
Goodbye.
You're listening to The David Feldman Show. You happy, self-actualized hump.